Mankind has submerged itself in the most devastating type of war possible, a trade war. Perhaps all wars are actually trade wars, but this one is a global trade war. World War I and World War II seem to have been awkward adolescent arguments when compared to the possibility of a third eruption ahead of us in this last quarter of the 20th century. This big trade war is being fought over natural resources, such as fuel and food supplies. Is it simply coincidence that all the war-ridden sections of the globe contain some major natural resource? As the world's supply of natural resources begins to deplete, the war will rage all the more furiously. Our resources are diminishing with awesome rapidity. Energy supplies, as we now know, are not unlimited. Our oceans, as we are now finding out, are not limitless, bottomless garbage disposal units. We're beginning to realize the hard way that the waters of life are essential for life itself. Industrial wastes, oil spills, and nuclear blasts have so damaged the global environment that the food supply may run out. Fish in the ocean, in rivers, and in lakes are becoming contaminated, and where still fit for consumption, they are being so overmarketed that world supplies are dwindling fast. The Soviet fishing fleets have more ships than the rest of the world combined. Wild animals are also being overkilled and are decreasing at an extinction rate. The weather itself, upon which the farmer and our crops depend, is not devoid of danger. Nuclear evolution is threatening the rhythms of nature. Drastic seasonal and temperature changes have been and are continuing to be induced. This unrestrained free-for-all rush for expansion, development, and power at any cost, like the fabled lemmings, is leading us to our death. And as resources, food, and fuel diminish, global competition is going to increase. Between 1975 and 1982, prices will continue to rise. Inflation will continue its upward spiral. Cities, states, and countries will declare bankruptcy and submit to intervention or controls imposed by larger, more secure and powerful nations, or else pathetically deteriorate into anarchy. The stock market will, of course, crash, but this time a global crash unequaled in recorded history. The entire world banking system will be shattered. Many corporations and large individually owned industries will collapse. Even many of the multinational corporations will not escape. The economic system of the world will be drastically altered, and the balance of world power will shift considerably. Free enterprise will be dealt a devastating blow. Democracy, as we know it, will never be the same again. We will be entering an era of social revolution. Controls and more controls will be imposed on citizens of every nation as each scrambles for economic survival. By 1982, there will be world shortages of just about all resources. The insecurity and chaos of 1982 will generate unbearable tensions and tragedies. There will be a life and death struggle for food and fuel between all nations. From 1982 to 1984 inclusive, there will be such stressful intensity that the fate of life on Earth hangs in the balance. Such a tremendous period of change has not occurred and will not reoccur in over 500 years. Not since the Renaissance, not since the first book was printed in English, not since the discovery of America and the subsequent destruction of the Red Indian civilization. these were all grand new horizons, and perhaps mankind in 1984 will also open grand new horizons in the space age. It is even conceivable that a moon or planet will be found within our solar system that could support human life and open a new era of expansion for colonization, if we can afford it. Most likely between 1982 and 1984, competitive nations will plunge themselves and the rest of humanity along with them into a full-scale nuclear war, a third world war, a global holocaust, the survivors of which, if any, will be the seeds of the Aquarian Age. Sunspots and solar flares are the sun's way of reacting to the magnetic and gravitational balances of the solar system. Any intense angular alignment of planets will cause magnetic storms on the sun. The radiation from the sun supports all life on Earth and elsewhere in the solar system. However, the direct radiation from a solar explosion is deadly. Fortunately, Earth has a protective shield around it, the ionosphere, the magnetosphere, and the basic atmosphere immediately surrounding Earth's crust. All three protective spheres react to solar radiations. This is visible in the form of weather changes and in the aurora borealis, or northern lights. Whenever the sun's radiation is disturbed, there is a corresponding disruption in our atmospheres. Man has a magnetic field or aura around him. It is commonly considered his vitality. Earth also has a magnetic field or aura around it, which determines the weather. The magnetic field of man is totally within and conditioned by the magnetic field and weather on Earth. Earth's magnetic field is conditioned by the total magnetic pattern of all the planetary magnetic fields in the solar system. Any change in the magnetic field of the solar system precipitates a corresponding change in Earth and the weather, and therefore crops, which in turn precipitate changes in man. The deterioration of our atmosphere will weaken Earth's protective shield. It is quite possible that the deterioration of these spheres parallels the increase in cancer. One of our seemingly most indispensable technological advances, the spray can, has suddenly become one of our greatest enemies. A certain gas is used in most spray cans that rises and begins to deteriorate the ozone layer of the ionosphere. The effect is accumulative, like arsenic in a body. If the ozone layer becomes seriously weakened, the human race and life on Earth will be in grave danger. A major solar magnetic storm could kill. In 1982 and 1984, when the planets grouped themselves on one side of the sun within a 90-degree section, a tremendous gravitational and magnetic imbalance will be created in the solar system. This will generate corresponding magnetic storms on the sun of a greater intensity than has occurred in over 500 years. The last time this occurred, however, the Earth's atmosphere, magnetosphere, and ionosphere were intact, unpolluted, and healthy. There is as great a possibility of life on Earth being destroyed by sunspots and solar flares as by nuclear war. And there is a great possibility of nuclear war. Genetic weaknesses evolve from living in overcrowded, polluted, and unhealthy urban environments, large cities, over which the ionosphere and atmosphere has deteriorated, are exceptionally vulnerable. It would not be hard to imagine a plague or epidemic that could kill a city. Even today in the 1970s, every year, a new fatal cold virus arises and spreads rapidly around the world. Every time you use a spray can, you are increasing Earth's vulnerability, as well as the risk of you or your children catching cancer.
Can you live without aerosol, hairspray, or deodorant? Can your children?
Neptune was discovered because its gravitational influence caused perturbations or fluctuations in the orbit of Uranus. Pluto was discovered because of perturbations caused in the orbit of Neptune. Each planet in the solar system has a potent gravitational influence on every other planet. These gravitational forces and their fluctuations, including those of the moons, are the sources of most seismic activity on any planet. The combination of certain intensities cause major earthquakes. Whenever several planets align themselves, increased seismic activity is the result. Earthquake-sensitive areas then react accordingly. Delicately balanced areas in the Earth's crust are then shaken. The Earth is a very sensitive organism of the solar system. Its balance can easily be upset. Underground nuclear explosions will yet prove to be as lethal and dangerous as surface explosions, with perhaps greater consequences. A similar situation would be that of a junkie fatally addicted to heroin, shooting devastating explosions into his life system. The body can only take so much before total collapse. From 1982 to 1984, the planet Earth will be shaken in a manner that it has not been shaken for over 500 years. Nuclear blasts have altered the subterranean balance within the Earth's crust. The San Andreas fault line will most definitely react to this time, and California will be devastated by earthquakes. Not only California, but the entire Pacific coast of North America, Central America, and South America will tremble and rock. Japan is also exceptionally vulnerable, as is Hawaii and Alaska. Without a doubt, the time comes. Without a doubt, every underground nuclear blast weakens the Earth's crust, especially in areas near fault lines such as New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. Most likely, nothing preventative will be done before catastrophe. Will you visit San Francisco or Los Angeles in 1984? Will you go in 1982? Will you go now? If you really want to know where our money is going, look to the stars, to the planets, and of course, to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. When we put them together, an awakening view of the world opens before our eyes. What does 1984 mean to NASA? How can planets have any effect on Earth and life on Earth? In 1984, all the planets in the solar system grouped together in a very small area on the same side of the Sun. This is a very rare occurrence. In very simple terms, this means, in the eyes of NASA planners, that one rocket ship can go very closely to Mars and then, using Mars' gravitational field, swing by and reach out to Jupiter. Using Jupiter's gravitational field, the spaceship can continue to Saturn and then on to Uranus, followed by Neptune and Pluto. In other words, one rocket ship can do the job of 6 separate launchings at normal times. It doesn't take long to realize the economical advantage of such a project, and such a project it is. NASA definitely intends to take advantage of the system. It would be a fool not to. The multiple space venture is already scheduled and has been for years. The actual project has been toned down in size to only 1, 2, or 3 of such multiple planetary swing-by launchings. It takes many years to prepare a space shot. First, technological plans are drawn up, the astronauts are trained and educated, and the construction of the space vehicle needs to be organized and completed. When it comes to space projects, timing is essential. It boggles the mind to imagine the complexity of the planning. Once the operation is set in motion, there is no stopping. Too much is at stake. Deadlines must be met. All stages must be efficiently coordinated. All steps must go ahead as planned at the appropriate times. There can be no question of delays or work stoppages. The possibility of a workers' strike is impossible. All systems must be operating with a military-like efficiency. The blast-off must come by 1980 if the ship is to reach Neptune or Pluto. The spaceship must be ready by 1979. Construction must commence well before 1975. This military efficiency must be set up and maintained as much as 5 or 10 years before the final blast-off. We begin to wonder how, why, and even if such a superhuman feat is possible. How could anyone or any business ensure such stability and no matter how it is viewed, NASA is big business. Perhaps the biggest, with the most amount of subsidiaries and affiliated industries. It is hard to imagine how much fuel and energy is needed on a regular and dependable basis over a 10-year period to complete even one NASA project. How could such a vast supply of energy be supplied? Certainly a contract at a set price is desirable. How could energy be reliably regulated and guaranteed? And where would the money come from? We come back to the need for military efficiency, without which would be economic chaos or global inflation. There is a strong need for absolute control over the energy business. The government requires a monopoly. If you want to know where the energy and the economy is going, look to the skies. In order to meet rising demands of energy by NASA and the space projects, it became necessary to control the energy industries. Several years of violently fluctuating prices, followed by the energy crisis of 1974 and 1975, effectively wiped out the little guy and independent businesses. Necessary steps of control required for completion of Project 1984. By October 1982, the need will arise for global environmental and economic controls if mankind is to survive. How will such controls be imposed, and who will enforce them? This is crucial. The major world powers like Russia, China, the United States, and Europe will have to form a global governing body, perhaps a world federation of nations, but one with power this time. Unless a world monetary system is introduced, unless international finance is controlled, unless nuclear arms are controlled, and the natural environment of Earth protected, how can we survive? We're coming to a point in space and a moment in time when we, humanity, will decide on all or nothing. Life on Earth will have to change if we are to live here, if our children are to grow up healthy, if their dreams of a space age are going to be realized. Partial change will not be enough. It will have to be a complete change. Either way, by nuclear warfare or without it, global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them. Crises precipitate change. Let us pray that mankind will mature sufficiently to solve this oncoming crisis diplomatically before a nuclear war precipitates. Nuclear war is the easy way out. We have municipal, state, and federal governments. We need a global government to oversee and control federal governments. In other words, we need a big brother. Big brother, where are you? Are you afraid of a big brother and its implications? Can you see any other way? I, for one, would prefer a big brother to no life, nor children at all. I don't think we can reverse gear now. It's too late for that. We will need technology to heal the industrial wounds to the Earth. Our children dream of space travel like we dreamed about fire engines and locomotives. Are you prepared to take away their dreams? The dawning of the Age of Aquarius will cover approximately 430 years until the year 2377 AD, when the Age of Aquarius actually begins. Contrary to popular belief, it has not yet begun, except in seed. The Aquarian Age will be an age of sexual equality. As long as the balance between man's rights and woman's rights is not established, rest assured, the Aquarian Age has not come. The Aquarian Age is truly the age of humanity, its heights and its depths. It is an age of equality, of sisterhood and brotherhood, of space explorations and social revolution. Idealized as the Aquarian Age is, it will not be any bed of roses. For the mere existence of a space age on Earth yields the consequence of militant or strongly regulated lives. The Aquarian Age is more likely to be an individual briar patch with all its sharp thorns. As daylight increases, so does our sense of individual freedom. As nighttime increases, so does our sense of social obligations and responsibility. When daylight is greater than nighttime, the individual emphasis predominates. When nighttime is greater than daytime, the collective or group emphasis predominates. The spring and summer signs of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and Virgo are all individually oriented signs. They are the I, me signs. People born with their suns in these signs are aware of themselves and their own independence. The fall and winter signs of Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces are all socially oriented signs. They are the we, us signs. People with their suns in these signs find their essential meaning in life through relating to others. They are aware of responsibility and the needs of others. The spring signs are Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. These are the strongest individuals of the zodiac. They insist on independence. Here day is increasing and is also longer than night. Aries begins on the first day of spring, when the light force finally overcomes the darkness and day becomes longer than night. Traditionally, this is Easter, the resurrection of the light from its wintry grave. It is a time of great joy and cheer. Winter is over. The fires and passions of spring begin to stir. Suddenly, there is a potent impulse for individual activity. Change is here. Action is needed. The confining darkness of winter and social obligations need to be left behind. Something has to be done to leave the restrictions behind. Action is needed. There is energy to be used. It has to be used. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, so long as I'm doing something. I am whatever I am doing. Energy for energy's sake, say I. Anything is better than sitting still. The day is only slightly longer than the night, however, and Aries is a sign of unstable equilibrium. The individuality is still insecure. Consequently, it identifies itself to action. As long as there is something to do, Aries is content. Whenever there is nothing to do, Aries become very uncomfortable and emotionally confused. Aries have trouble with stillness. They are what they are doing. But who are they when there is nothing to be done? They don't know. This is their insecurity. Action, however, must be independent. Aries are always ready to fight for freedom. Taurus. The days are now considerably longer than the nights. Spring is well on its way. The individuality of Taurus is stronger than that of Aries. It is no longer enough just to be active. Now activity must be for a purpose. It must accomplish something. Some personal benefit or advantage must be gained if Taurus is to become active. While Aries identifies to action, Taurus identifies to the rewards of action. In Taurus, the individuality is extended into one's possessions. Taurus is a very practical, down-to-earth sign. Energy is expended to plant seeds that will yield a greater harvest. In Taurus, the individuality emerges with fine clothes, expensive jewelry or pendants, and financial security. Taurians look for stability. The possessions around them, or their possessiveness, will give them away. Taurians would rather buy freedom than fight for it. I have is the main theme of Taurus. The challenge is to use what you have. In Gemini, the days increase to their greatest extreme. Nights become as short as possible. This means that Geminis are the greatest individuals of the zodiac. Born when days are their longest, the Gemini individuality relates strongly to personal freedom, especially freedom of speech. Geminis will make sure that they keep in touch with other people. They're always extending their capacity for relationship. They like to relate to as many different persons as possible. Geminis are witty and exceptionally interested in communications, languages, and words. If you want to upset a Gemini, confront them with a word game that they don't understand. Their individuality is expressed through their ability to communicate with and identify to others, or rather to be identified by others. Geminis think that I am as unique as all the variety of persons I relate to. Each person is an extension of my own identity. The more people I know, the greater I am. If there is anything that will repulse a Gemini, it is obligation. As long as they are free to offer their services, all is well. But the minute they're obliged to, trouble sets in. Invite a Gemini to a party, and they'll come willingly. Insist on it, issue an ultimatum, and Gemini will be long gone. They won't bother to show up. Gemini has more than enough to do, just keeping in touch with everyone. Gemini spends so much time running around relating to others that there is actually very little time for themselves. To Geminis, the pen is mightier than the sword, and the telephone is faster. The summer signs are Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. Here the days are longer than the nights, and the length of nighttime is increasing. These signs are still very active individuals, or I, me people, but with an increasing amount of responsibility. As the nighttime increases, so does their involvement in their community or society. Cancer marks the beginning of summer. The days are still close to their longest, but the nights are increasing slightly. Cancers are individuals who don't want to feel the insecurity or exhaustion of the Gemini runaround. In Cancer, the energy of Gemini is redirected. A foundation is sought. Some base or home is needed where one can gather together one's feelings and recharge. Cancers, too, love their independence, but they find freedom in domestic security at home. Having a foundation or home implies having a certain amount of responsibility. If you have a home, you have to take care of it too, and pay the rent and the taxes. The almost imperceptible increasing night times yield a similar, almost imperceptible sensitivity to individual responsibility and obligations. Cancers accumulate feelings. They like to feel secure and comfortable. Anything that threatens the security of their foundations or home is felt immediately. They feel instinctively how secure a person is and how they deal with basic responsibilities. Cancers have the uncanny ability to feel or psych out the stability of your foundations. They'll know immediately if your castle is made of sand. More than that, Cancers have the most irritating tendency to see immediately anything in your home that you don't want to be known. If you've swept dirt under a carpet corner, they'll just happen to walk on it and find out. Cancers live day to day, from one impression to the next. Cancers may not understand, but they feel. And what they feel is usually real. In Leo, the days are still longer than the nights, but the nights are increasing considerably. Once feeling is accumulated, it needs to be expressed, and creative expression is the Leonian outlet. Usually Leos burst onto the scene in some very noticeable manner that is designed to get attention. Leos are basically big kids. They need to win and be noticed. Leos will always penetrate to the center of any group or to the center of the stage with grand dramatics. Performance is important to Leos. Leos usually feel a kingly pride and that they are born leaders. They are strong individuals and they want to lead because of the obvious personal benefits. They have to feel important. They have to shine. They are very purposeful individuals. However, no matter how grand Leos present themselves, they are in truth socially insecure. They cannot relate equally to others, so they have to lead or win. They feel the oncoming autumn but can't relate to it. They feel the need for responsibility but are too individual to take orders. Leos are vulnerable to delusions of grandeur. Leos have to make big social gestures to cover up their basic sense of inadequacy. "Hi, gang! Well, I'm here. Let's go. Follow me!" without finding out if the others want to go. Leos find their freedom in art, creativity, romance, in children, and in sports. And anywhere they can be king or queen. In Virgo, the days are longer than the nights, but the nights increase in length until they finally equal the days at the end of summer. No longer can we sit back and enjoy the good weather. Harvest time means work. Virgos are very self-critical. They analyze themselves and their performance to an extreme. They feel the need to self-discipline the Leonian energies. Virgo does not want to develop delusions of grandeur, and yet it is an I-me individual sign. Virgo senses the need to relate and realizes the necessity of self-preparation and self-control. Consequently, Virgos work hard to perfect themselves, to improve their techniques and analyze their situations. In order to maintain a home and children or any foundation, work is needed. Virgos know the best way to do something. They need to work and feel useful, and Virgos do work hard to take care of their own personal responsibilities. They are constantly trying to repolarize their personal emotions and improve their own nature. They are concerned about health, diet, hygiene, and will generally keep a clean house. Whatever you do, don't criticize a Virgo. They will get annoyed because they feel that they criticize themselves enough. Virgos find freedom in perfection. Because they love to criticize, Virgos are known as the nitpickers of the zodiac. The autumn signs are Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. Here the nights are longer than the days, and night continues to increase. The group emphasis surpasses the individuality and comes to the fore. These signs are the we, us people, and they have a growing concern about social involvements and its subsequent responsibilities. Libra. Unlike Aries, who acts without forethought or concern just to leave the past behind, in Libra the nighttime or social forces predominate. Libra has to see where things are going and what a relationship is leading to. Libras are the designers or architects of civilization. They will look for the ideal community, the ideal partner, the ideal marriage. They are the dreamers. The nights are just barely longer than the days in Libra, and Librans are basically in a state of unstable equilibrium. They want the ideal relationship, but are still quite individually oriented. They look for the perfect mate, but are afraid of losing themselves in an imperfect reality. Libras maintain the balance between the individual and the group. They relate to responsibility, but are sensitive to independence. Often caught between two extremes, Libras seem to indecisively sit on the fence. Often the stark reality of imperfection appears much too coarse for the aesthetical Librans, who may prefer instead to live with the ideal in the mind and keep their heads in clouds. The Libran is apt to be frightened away by raw sexuality. They much prefer a more refined, cultured, or ideal relationship to a crude one. Librans value harmonious and tranquil relations. Librans aren't looking for freedom. They're looking for the ideal relationship, for responsible partnership. In Scorpio, as the nighttime continues to increase and extend its victory over the daytime, it is no longer sufficient to dream of an ideal community. For Scorpios, social reality must be vitalized, made concrete and inescapable. While Librans might shy away from basic relations such as sex, for Scorpios there is a powerful and definite urge to merge into absolute union with other individuals. There is a constant need to be more than oneself, and two people in absolute union are much greater than one alone. To relate to a Scorpio, you need to merge completely with him or her. There has to be a basic eye-to-eye nakedness at all times. Thus, with the increasing night force, Scorpios are responsible for the sensitivities and secrets of those they have merged with. When expressed negatively, Scorpios can be extremely selfish. In sex and in society, they might want to take all and give as little as possible. They do as they desire. Through group involvement and responsible participation, Scorpios are transformed. Complete union is an initiation into the mysteries of life. To appreciate Scorpios, one has to understand their need to merge completely. In Sagittarius, the night force increases to its utmost. Daytime becomes as diminished as is possible. Likewise, group emphasis far surpasses and overpowers the individual. Sagittarians identify enthusiastically to social and communal activities. They understand the potentials of a group or community, and they make sure that they know what is going on. They go to many social functions in order to be inspired and to elevate their understanding. Sagittarians interpret the significance of social visions and goals. They are very sensitive to the rhythm of social operations, perhaps too sensitive. Everything seems to relate to the need of the group or to the need of the times. Sagittarians can be exceptionally fanatical, with little regard for individual sacrifices. They feel that everyone sacrifices, so why fuss about it? Sagittarians are often arrogant and tactless. Never ask a Sagittarian if they like what you're wearing or about your performance. They are often exceptionally blunt. Sagittarians are enthusiastic social participants. They like to get around. Their search for new horizons takes them to many distant places and exposes them to many new ways of thinking. As philosophers, they often travel far in the realm of ideas. They like open spaces and large rooms. They also like to exercise their muscles, physical, mental, and social. They are abstract thinkers, so don't expect them to be concise and clear. Sagittarians are so busy and active that they can get lost in the social milieu. At an extreme, they take on the social standards of those around them. This can be quite confusing. To the Sagittarian, it is necessary to be involved to understand, and true comprehension is the greatest freedom. The winter signs are Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Here the nights are longer than the days, and daytime begins to increase. The group emphasis still predominates, and these signs are also we, us, people. The individual now begins to emerge within social situations. Capricorn, the longest night has just passed. Nights are longer than the days, but the days are beginning to increase. This is the beginning of winter. All nature is dark and dying, yet the increasing days are a sign of hope for the spring to come. The Sagittarian expansiveness sooner or later presents us with the need for boundaries and limitations. Life can't be based on expansion alone, or many individuals will suffer great injustices. Sooner or later, rules and regulations need to be made and reinforced. And as the days increase, individuals emerge who establish laws and governments, individuals who are concerned about social security. In Capricorn, the individuals are not very strong by themselves, and they can easily be affected by social currents. Capricorns, however, do not want to be confused or insecure, or subject to the tides of social opinions. They want to stand on a relatively secure social foundation. The test of Capricorn is the test of position and power. Social status, a steady job, a regular salary, prestige, money, and authority are Capricornian concerns. Capricorns search for individual power within the system or community. They like to make the rules and call the shots. They take on extra responsibilities to increase their personal power. Capricorns need to administrate responsibilities. They need authority to feel secure. The negative aspects of Capricorn are an over-identification to the social structure or system, strong ambitions, and a lust for power. Capricorns will either fight for position or else transcend the whole madhouse and turn inward to the inner light. The Capricorn choice is one of hermit or politician, inner peace or outer struggle, Christ or Caesar. Aquarius. The nights are still longer than the days, but the days are steadily increasing. In Aquarius, the individuality is more secure than in Capricorn. There's not so much of a drive for power as the personal evaluation of the social situation, the state and its rules. If the rules are fair, then Aquarians will be the ideal citizens and constructively develop the community, state, or organization. However, if the laws or rules of the system are unjust, then Aquarius will rebel. Aquarians need to prove themselves to others. They're not strong individuals, and consequently Aquarians will group together with those of common spirit and new ideals. If necessary, they will destroy the old system. Aquarians are constantly trying to cease being a mere creature of the state or of social security. This usually leads them into radical reform groups set on breaking down the restrictive Capricornian bureaucracy. However, as the nights are still longer than the days, the Aquarian individual is still dependent on the social structures he rebels against. Aquarians make big personal gestures to hide a personal sense of insecurity and their fear of strong individuals. If you want to borrow money, ask an Aquarian. They'll lend you the shirt off their back. It reinforces their ego. Aquarians relate to social equality rather than freedom. They are ready to rebel and destroy social limitations and taboos. A friend to all equally, but a little afraid of standing alone and independent. Pisces. Force wanes and the day force increases, but the nights are still slightly longer. Social factors turn negative in Pisces and become subjective complexes. Unfulfilled dreams and frustrations yield subconscious fantasies. Social failures and mismanaged responsibilities become personal nightmares. In Pisces, one has to face one's fears. The depths are aroused. All outward impressions seem to bubble up within. Visions of social disintegration often overwhelm the feelings. Pisces is critically aware of the moral degradations and social disintegration that encompasses them. There is nothing to lean on. Death is all around them. There is nowhere to turn. No security is the only security. Pisces are constantly forced to give up the comfortable yet tragic reliance on the society, the system, and others. Pisces need to stand alone and to rely on the vision and the voice of their own inner light. Fulfillment will come only through the inner depths. The ritual of Lent is a message for Pisces. Transcendence is the path to belief and fulfillment.